Hello and welcome to the sewing studio. Today I'm going to tell you why I love these binding clips. One of the reasons I like them is because they're so colourful and I like the noise they make. They come in these little packets and you can see that you've got all different colours. So I use the colours when I'm storing my little scraps of binding. So when I've made a quilt and I have little bits of binding left over, I roll them up and keep them in a tin so I can do scrappy binding. But what I do is I use a binding clip. As you can see here, I've probably gone one step too far because I've colour coordinated my clips to my binding. Another thing you can use them for is if you've got lots of pattern pieces cut out when you're making a quilt, and you want to keep them in the right order before you go to your sewing machine, they're perfect for that. And you've got them all clipped together, and I just prefer it to pins. Another use I've got for them is if you're making, so I'm in the process of making a dog toy, and you can see here that I've stitched all the way around the outside, and I'm in the process of filling it with some grains to make it weighted. And the tricky bit is when you put that back under your machine, everything starts to fall out. And if you pin it, you've still got gaps. So what I like to do is fill it up, and before I sew it, I pop the clips on. And then I put it under the machine foot. And as I get to each one, I just slide it off. And I find that much easier than pins. If you've got a small piece of fabric that you are attaching to a quilt. So for example, I'm going to attach a fillet. Sometimes when you use pins, you can actually make the fabric not sit as flat. So again, I like to pop the clips on, especially when I've got to go really near to the edge. So I pop the clips on, and then as I sew down, I just slide them off. Again, my preferred choice. If you've got patterns and you've cut out pieces of your pattern and you don't want them dropping out of the envelope, I use them for that. I'm in the process here of making a soft toy elephant, and I've stuffed his tail, and I've got to sew the tail in between. So having these clips, because the tail is padded, I've got to sew this to this piece of fabric first before I put the other piece of him on there, because then he's got to be stuffed as well. Again, the clips just make life easier because as you've sewn over it, you just slide the clips off. So for bunting, I really like them because when you're putting your flags in between your tape, let's get these straightened out. So when you're putting your flags in this tape, it's so much easier than putting pins. So again, you tuck your little flag in, you pop your clips on, and then when you come to sew, you're going to sew right to the edge. And as you're coming down on your machine, so you're going to come down here like this with your machine, you just slide the clips off. And I just think it makes life so much easier. And then finally, what they're really used for, when you're hand sewing binding down, you can pop your clips on. And when you want your mitered corner to stay in place, if you pop a clip over that, it makes a nice crease. And then you sew along and you just slide your clips off as you go. So they are all the reasons that I absolutely love my binding clips. And I just keep buying more and more. So I hope I've given you some ideas of what you can use binding clips for. As always, have fun, and I look forward to seeing you next time here in the sewing studio.